This is Hidden Killers Week in Review.
A look back at the most prolific stories of the week.
This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
There's a kind of silence that doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in slowly. The way snow covers the roof of a house. It muffles sound. It softens edges. It hides everything underneath until the world forgets what it used to look like. For the family of Brian Kohberger, that silence started the day the lights of law enforcement painted their front yard blue and red. Before that night, they were just another Pennsylvania family. A dad who worked maintenance for the school district, a mom who cared deeply about education and wrote letters to the local paper about moral issues, two older sisters with lives of their own, and their youngest, Brian, the quiet, analytical one who always seemed a little different, but still belonged. The one his mother called bright, gifted, and maybe even brilliant, allegedly. When you look at what's on record, it's an almost painfully normal story. Marianne and Michael Kohberger raised their kids in the Poconos. Modest home, school jobs, neighbors who barely remember anything remarkable about them. Brian's mom wrote letters condemning the death penalty, letters about compassion, about protecting children from violence. In 2022, after the Uvalde shooting, she published a poem one of her daughters wrote allegedly called Consider the Children Before the Gun. It is haunting to read now. Because that same year, one of those children, her youngest, would be accused of committing one of the most brutal murders the country had seen in decades. Brian's early life is documented mostly through classmates and neighbors. He was an overweight kid in high school, bullied, withdrawn. Then came the transformation. He lost over 100 pounds senior year, cut people off, grew cold. And friends from those years told CBS's 48 Hours that he got deep into psychology, became obsessed with understanding why people did bad things. Some said he experimented with drugs, heroin, and then came college. Northampton Community College. Psychology degree, then a master's degree, then the PhD program in criminology. On paper, it looked like redemption. The bullied kid who fought his way into academia, studying the very things that once haunted him. But for the people who loved him, his family, there were likely quiet red flags that never made headlines. Not because they were obvious, but because they were subtle, like static under a radio signal. The kind of oddness you learn to explain away. Then in late 2022, the murders in Moscow, Idaho, 4 students dead, the suspect unknown, a white Hyundai Elantra caught on security footage. For most Americans, it was another true crime story unfolding in real time. For the Kohbergers, it was just something on the news. Until it wasn't. According to Dateline NBC, one of Brian's sisters grew uneasy before the arrest. She'd heard about the car, heard about the suspect's build, and started to feel a cold, creeping dread. She looked at her brother, looked at his car, and somewhere deep inside, a part of her must have known. Please, God, no. The family reportedly checked Brian's Elantra. They didn't find anything then, but weeks later, police and FBI agents were swarming their house. I mean, imagine that for a second. In the middle of winter in Pennsylvania, the air sharp enough to sting your lungs, you wake to pounding on the door, and within minutes your entire family is surrounded, flashlights, helicopters, neighbors staring from behind curtains, and your youngest brother handcuffed in the driveway. That's the day the name Kohberger changed forever. In the days that followed, the headlines did what headlines do. They consumed every available space. Photos of the family home, Marianne's old letters, yearbook shots, childhood photos. The family became a story, a subject. Strangers online dissected every trace of their lives, every facial expression, every silence they could find. The Kohbergers released a statement. The effective, we have fully cooperated with law enforcement. We care deeply for the 4 families who have lost their precious children. It's the language of people who understand they've entered a machine they can't control. You cooperate, you speak carefully, you say the right words, and you still lose everything. And in no way, shape, or form, let me say this, am I blaming these parents or the siblings for any of this. This is more of a look of the hell they had to go through. Psychologists have a name for what happens to people in their position. Courtesy stigma means you inherit guilt by proximity. You didn't do anything wrong, but you share a name with someone who did. And the public doesn't always separate the two. In July of 2025, Brian sat in a courtroom and heard his sentence, 4 consecutive life terms without parole. His mother, his sister, both there. Reports noted that Brian never once looked at them. He walked out without acknowledgement. For a mother, for a sister, it's a second kind of death. The erasure of connection. There's something psychologically shattering about that. When you spend your whole life being someone's sibling and suddenly the person sitting in front of you isn't your brother anymore, but a stranger behind glass. Psychologists call it ambiguous loss. The person you love is alive, but gone. You can't grieve them the way you would a death because they're still breathing. And you can't love them the way you used to because the love feels contaminated. Every sibling of a murderer describes some version of this. Carrie Rawson, daughter of BTK, said the day her father was arrested, my life ended too. Melissa Moore, daughter of the happy face killer, said she felt a kind of shame that made her want to disappear. David Kaczynski, who turned in his brother, the Unabomber, Ted, called it the moral injury of doing the right thing and losing family forever. For the Kohberger sisters, it's like a mix of all of it. Love, horror, loyalty, guilt, self-preservation. They've never spoken publicly. But you don't have to. The psychological blueprint is universal. The shock doesn't end when the trial does. It lingers in everyday life, in the job interview where someone hesitates over your last name, in the grocery store when you feel eyes on you. In the moment you tell someone new who you are and wait for the silence that follows. It's also the family dynamic no one sees. Families of offenders are often torn apart by competing forces: blame, denial, guilt, anger, and grief. Sometimes one sibling becomes the caretaker, holding the parents together while privately unraveling. Others retreat completely, cut off contact, start over somewhere new. It's survival instinct, but it also feels like betrayal. What's on record suggests the Kohbergers stayed mostly private. They didn't give interviews, didn't defend, didn't condemn. They endured, and that too is a psychological strategy, containment. When you can't change the story, you manage it by silence. There's research on this. A study in the British Journal of Criminology found that siblings of serious offenders often experience symptoms similar to PTSD. Nightmares, hypervigilance, anxiety, chronic guilt. Many feel they've lost their sense of identity. One participant described it as living inside someone else's crime. And that phrase sticks because it captures the essence of what it must feel like for the Kohberger sisters, living inside the echo of something they didn't do but can't escape. If you look closer, you see hints of their humanity, even in the public fragments. The mother's opposition to the death penalty long before this ever happened, her visible collapse in the courtroom, the quiet presence of his sister listed as a potential witness before Brian's plea deal. These are people navigating the unbearable middle ground between justice and family. And when it's over, when the cameras move on, there's still the debris. Bills, neighbors who cross the street, old friends who don't call back, a mother whose every word is described online, a brother whose name is a curse, and 2 sisters who have to decide whether they keep living under that name or let it die. Other siblings of notorious killers have chosen different paths. David Dahmer, brother of Jeffrey Dahmer, legally changed his name and disappeared completely. Carrie Rawson wrote a book reclaiming her story, and there's a new documentary up, by the way, on Netflix that is worth watching from her perspective. Melissa Moore turned to advocacy, helping others live beyond their family's crimes. There is no single right answer, only the path that hurts least. For the Kohbergers, maybe that path is silence. Maybe it's therapy. Maybe it's starting over. Maybe it's just trying to wake up one morning without flinching when you see your own last name. Psychologists talk about post-traumatic growth, the idea that people can find strength through suffering. It doesn't mean the pain disappears. It means you learn to carry it differently. Maybe that's what's next for the sisters. Carrying it differently. Because the hardest part of growing up with someone like Brian isn't reconciling what he did. It's reconciling who you are now that he's done it. You can forgive or not. You can love him or not, but you can always be the person who shared his childhood, the house, the holidays, the history. And that's what makes this story quietly devastating. Not the crime itself, but the emotional fallout. The way one person's pathology can steal an entire family's identity. Growing up Kohberger would mean waking up every day in a world where your family name carries weight. You never asked for it. It would mean loving someone you never quite look at again. It would mean trying to build a life knowing that the rest of the world has already decided what your last name means. There's no fixing that. There's only surviving it. And survival for families like this isn't dramatic or heroic. It's mundane. It's a sister going to work and not crying in the car. It's a mother finding a therapist who doesn't ask for headlines. It's learning to speak your own name again without whispering. That's a quiet epilogue to every infamous crime. The story the cameras never follow. The story that doesn't sell but still matters. The story of the ones left behind, trying to live a normal life in the ruins of someone else's choices. Because the truth is, you can't choose your family. You can only choose what you become after them. And for the Kohbergers, that's the rest of their life. The long, invisible sentence that began the day their brothers ended. Give me your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube. If you're not already there, check us out. Just search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski, and you'll find it. Love to get your feedback. Until next time, I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.